Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
It was a chilly December evening when I found out. The kind of night where the world feels still, like it's holding its breath before the holidays. I'd just come home from work, set my keys on the counter, and poured myself a glass of wine when my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "We're so sorry you won't be joining us for Christmas this year. We'll miss you." I stared at the screen, confused. What did she mean? I hadn't received an invitation, let alone declined one. I scrolled through my messages, thinking I might have missed something, but there was nothing. My stomach tightened as a gnawing sense of dread set in. I called my mom right away. She picked up after the second ring, her usual warmth replaced with an almost rehearsed cheerfulness. "Hi, sweetheart," she said. "Everything okay?" "Not really," I replied. "What do you mean by, sorry I'm not coming?" I never said I wasn't coming. I didn't even know there were plans. "Oh," she said, her tone faltering. "I thought Matt mentioned it to you." Of course. Matt. My older brother had always been the center of the family universe. The golden child whose mistakes were swept under the rug while the rest of us were expected to make sacrifices to keep things running smoothly. "Well, he didn't," I said, keeping my voice steady. "What's going on?" There was a long pause before she replied, "It's just a small gathering this year." Matt and Claire thought it might be simpler to keep it intimate. I couldn't help but laugh. Simpler? What does that even mean? Another pause. Then, as if she couldn't handle the confrontation, she said, "You should talk to Matt." So I did. I called him that same night, my pulse racing as the phone rang. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice casual, like he hadn't just excluded me from our family's holiday. "Eric," he said. "What's up?" "I just got off the phone with Mom," I said. "She says I'm not coming to Christmas this year." "Care to explain?" There was a beat of silence before he chuckled, a low, condescending sound that made my blood boil. "Yeah, well, we figured it'd be better if you sat this one out. Christmas is supposed to be festive, you know? And no offense, but you're not exactly in the best place right now." "What the hell does that mean?" I asked, my voice rising. "Come on, Eric," he said, his tone dismissive. "You're barely scraping by. It's embarrassing. Christmas is no place for losers." I froze, the words hanging in the air like a slap to the face. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. "Wow," I finally said, my voice cold. "That's how you see me? As a loser?" "You said it, not me," he replied. "Look, don't take it personally. It's just better this way." "Better for whom?" I wanted to scream, but instead of arguing, I took a deep breath and said, "Okay." "Okay," he repeated, clearly caught off guard. "Yeah," I said. "If that's how you feel, I won't argue. But just so we're clear, don't expect me to fund your lifestyle anymore. No more loans, no more helping with the kids' tuition or Claire's medical bills. You're on your own." He laughed again, though this time it sounded nervous. "You're bluffing. You'll find out soon enough," I said, hanging up before he could respond. As I sat on my couch, staring at the blank TV screen, a mix of emotions surged through me. Anger, hurt, betrayal, all of it swirling in my chest. But underneath it all, there was something else, a strange sense of relief. For years, I'd been the family safety net, the one who swooped in to fix things whenever Matt screwed up. I'd paid off his debts, covered his kids' school supplies, even footed the bill for a surprise vacation Claire had needed to recharge. And how had he repaid me? By calling me a loser and cutting me out of the holidays. Not this time. This time, I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to plead for a seat at the table. I was done being their backup plan. What happens when the person you've always relied on suddenly stops playing the role you've assigned them? Would Matt realize what he'd lost? Or would he double down on his entitlement? Let me know what you think, because for me, this was just the beginning. When I hung up the phone that night, a quiet resolve settled over me. It wasn't a dramatic moment. There were no slammed doors, no shouting, but it felt monumental. For the first time, I'd set a boundary. And not just any boundary, a firm, unshakable line that I had no intention of crossing. Matt probably thought I was bluffing. For years, he'd relied on my unwillingness to let anyone down. Every time he asked for money, whether it was for the kids' tuition, Claire's dental surgery, or the overdue electric bill, I'd given in, convincing myself it was for the family. But the truth was, I'd been enabling him. And now it was time to stop. The first month after that call passed without much noise. I didn't hear from Matt, and I didn't reach out. Christmas came and went, a strange, quiet day that I spent with a couple of friends instead of my family. But as the weeks rolled on, the cracks in Matt's life started to show. It began with small things. Claire posted on social media about a canceled dance class for their eldest daughter, Emma, lamenting how life keeps throwing us curveballs. Then came the subtle digs in group family texts, comments from Matt about how not everyone is willing to step up when it counts. I ignored it all, reminding myself that I wasn't responsible for his choices. By March, the silence broke. My phone buzzed one evening, and I glanced at the screen to see Claire's name. "Hey, Eric," she said, her voice unusually sweet. "How are you?" "I'm fine," I replied cautiously. "What's up?" "Well," she began, hesitating for a moment, "things have been a little tight lately. Matt's been under a lot of stress, and we were wondering if you could help us out just this once. Emma's school fees are due, and it's been hard to make ends meet." "There it was." "Claire," I said evenly, "I thought Matt would have told you. I'm not in a position to help anymore." She sighed, her tone shifting from sweet to exasperated. "Eric, you've always helped us. This is about the kids. Don't you care about your nieces and nephew?" The guilt hit me like a punch to the gut, but I stayed firm. "Of course I care about them, but I can't keep stepping in every time something goes wrong. Matt needs to figure this out on his own." "Figure it out?" she snapped. "You have no idea how hard things have been for us." "Maybe not," I said, my voice steady. "But I do know that I've been helping for years, and it's never enough. I can't do it anymore, Claire." The call ended on a tense note, and for the next few days, I found myself replaying the conversation in my head. Was I doing the right thing? Were the kids being punished for Matt's mistakes? But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This moment wasn't just about money. It was about breaking a cycle. For years, I'd been the safety net, the one who swooped in to fix everything. And where had it gotten me? Excluded from Christmas and dismissed as a loser. No more. A week later, the fallout truly began. Matt called me late one night, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Wow, Eric, you've really outdone yourself this time. Claire told me you refused to help with Emma's tuition. Nice to know you're okay with screwing over your own family." "I'm not screwing anyone over, Matt," I said, keeping my tone calm. "I'm just not funding your lifestyle anymore." "Lifestyle?" he repeated, his voice rising. "Do you think I'm living the high life over here? I'm barely keeping things together. Maybe it's time to reevaluate how you're managing things," I said, unable to keep the edge out of my voice. That's when he snapped. "You're ruining Christmas," he shouted. "Do you know how hard it's been since you decided to play hardball? The kids are upset, Claire's stressed, and now Mom and Dad are pissed because they're having to cover for you." I blinked, stunned. "Cover for me? Are you serious?" "They're covering for you because you've made yourself their problem, not mine. You think you're so much better than me," he spat. "But I know the truth, Eric. You're no saint. Maybe I should start telling people what you've been hiding." His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I didn't know what he meant, but the venom in his voice was enough to send a chill down my spine. "I'm not playing this game with you, Matt," I said firmly. "You don't get to guilt me into fixing your mistakes anymore. Grow up." And with that, I hung up. How far would someone go when they feel like they've lost control? Matt's threats left me shaken, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't backing down. "What do you think? Would you stand firm? Or would you give in to keep the peace?" The phone buzzed in my hand, Matt's name glaring back at me like a warning sign. I hesitated for a moment, considering whether to let it go to voicemail, but I knew him well enough to know that ignoring him would only escalate things. I swiped to answer. "What do you want, Matt?" "What do I want?" he snapped, his tone already dripping with hostility. "I want to know what the hell your problem is. Claire told me you've decided not to help anymore. Are you seriously this petty?" I took a deep breath, determined not to let him bait me. "It's not petty to set boundaries, Matt. I've been supporting you and your family for years while you refuse to take responsibility for anything. Enough is enough." "Responsibility?" he shot back, his voice rising. "Don't talk to me about responsibility. Do you have any idea what it's like to support a family? To have mouths to feed and bills piling up? Do you have any idea what it's like to be treated like a walking ATM?" I countered, the frustration I'd been bottling up spilling out. "I've paid for your kids' tuition, your medical bills, even your vacations, Matt. And how do you repay me? By calling me a loser and cutting me out of Christmas." There was a pause on the other end, just long enough to tell me my words had landed. But Matt, predictably, rebounded with more deflection. "This isn't about Christmas," he said, his tone cold. "This is about you being bitter because you don't have what I have. You don't have a family, Eric. You don't understand what it takes to keep one together." His words hit like a punch to the gut, but they also lit a fire in me. "You think I'm jealous of you?" I said, my voice trembling with both anger and disbelief. "Jealous of what, Matt? The constant chaos? The endless string of bad decisions? The fact that you can't go a month without begging someone for help? Don't act like you're so much better than me," he spat. "You've had it easy, Eric. No wife, no kids, no real responsibilities. You wouldn't last a day in my shoes. I let out a bitter laugh. Easy? Are you kidding me? Do you know how many late nights I've worked, how many sacrifices I've made just to keep things together while bailing you out of your messes? You've been handed everything, Matt. And instead of appreciating it, you act like you're entitled to more. The argument spiraled from there, each of us throwing years of pent-up resentment at the other. Matt accused me of being selfish, of abandoning the family when they needed me most. I countered by listing every time I'd stepped up when he hadn't, paying off his debts, covering for him when he flaked on responsibilities, and always being the one to clean up the messes he left behind. You don't get it, Matt, I said finally, my voice shaking with emotion. This isn't just about money. It's about respect. I've been breaking my back for years to help you, and you can't even acknowledge it. All you do is take, and then you have the audacity to call me a loser. Well, maybe if you weren't so bitter all the time, he shot back, people would actually want you around. The insult hung in the air like a slap. But instead of reacting, I forced myself to stay calm. You know what, Matt? I said, my voice low and steady. You can think whatever you want about me. But I'm done. I'm done funding your bad decisions. And I'm done letting you walk all over me. You've made your bed. Now you get to lie in it. For a moment, there was silence. Then Matt spoke again, his voice laced with venom. You think you can just walk away from this? He said. Mom and Dad know everything. And guess what? They're on my side. They agree you've always been jealous of me, always trying to make me look bad so you can feel superior. The accusation caught me off guard, but it also solidified something in me. Is that what you need to tell yourself to sleep at night? I said, fine, believe whatever you want, but don't call me again, Matt. Not unless you're ready to take some responsibility for your own life. You're going to regret this, he hissed. You'll see. When you're alone and no one's willing to help you, you'll see. I already am alone, I replied quietly. Thanks to you and everyone else in this family. I ended the call and sat there in silence, my heart pounding. Matt's words lingered in my mind, especially the part about our parents. Were they really on his side? Had they been enabling him all along while silently judging me for finally setting boundaries? The thought sent a chill down my spine. What do you do when the people you thought were in your corner turn out to be part of the problem? Would you confront them, or would you walk away entirely? Let me know, because for me, the next move wasn't clear. After my argument with Matt, I sat in my quiet apartment, staring at the dim glow of the city lights outside. His words played on a loop in my mind, especially the part about our parents. Mom and Dad know everything, and they're on my side. It wasn't just the words themselves. It was the smugness in his tone, the way he delivered it like a dagger meant to wound. The worst part? I couldn't tell if he was bluffing. I'd spent most of my adult life trying to be the good son, the reliable one, the one who didn't cause problems. But Matt? He'd always been the center of their attention, their source of worry, their reason for bending over backward. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this dynamic wasn't new. It had been there all along. Growing up, Matt was the kind of kid who got away with everything. When he snuck out past curfew, Dad would scold him, but ultimately shrug it off. Boys will be boys, he'd say. Meanwhile, if I so much as forgot to take out the trash, I'd get a lecture about responsibility and setting an example. I remember one summer when I was 13, and Matt had just gotten his first job delivering pizzas. He worked for a grand total of 2 weeks before he quit, claiming the manager was too demanding. Instead of encouraging him to stick it out, our parents bought him a new bike to cheer him up. That same summer, I spent weeks mowing lawns to save up for a used game console. When I asked if they could chip in the last $20 I needed, Dad shook his head. You'll appreciate it more if you earn it yourself, he said. And he was right. I did appreciate it more. But the lesson wasn't lost on me. Matt got rewarded for giving up, while I was expected to go it alone. These patterns only deepened as we got older. When Matt dropped out of college halfway through his sophomore year, our parents were quick to defend him. College isn't for everyone, Mom said, as if he hadn't wasted thousands of dollars in tuition. They even paid off his remaining loans, so he wouldn't start life in debt. Meanwhile, I worked 2 part-time jobs to cover my own tuition, skipping out on summer vacations and nights out with friends to make ends meet. Even after I graduated and landed a decent job, they found ways to minimize my efforts. When I told them I'd gotten a promotion, Mom said, "That's great, Eric. You know, Matt's been thinking about starting his own business. Maybe you could help him with that." It was always the same story. No matter what I did, it was never enough to earn their full attention. The most blatant example of their favoritism came a few years ago, during one of Matt's many financial crises. He racked up thousands of dollars in credit card debt, thanks to what he called bad luck, but what everyone else would call reckless spending. I still remember the conversation with Mom when she asked if I could help him out. "Eric," she'd said, her voice soft and pleading, "you've always been so responsible with your money. Matt's just going through a rough patch. If you could cover some of his payments, it would mean so much to him. And to us. And what happens when he racks up more debt?" I'd asked, my frustration barely contained. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," she replied. Of course, I gave in. I always gave in. Sitting there in my apartment, I couldn't help but wonder why I'd let it go on for so long. Was it guilt? Obligation? The desperate hope that one day they'd finally see me, really see me, and acknowledge everything I'd done? But as I replayed the years of sacrifice, the constant stream of Matt needs this and Matt needs that, I realized something. It had never been about me. In their eyes, I didn't need support because I'd proven I could survive without it. I was the dependable one, the safety net. And in a family where chaos reigned supreme, being dependable didn't earn you love, it earned you expectations. My phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. It was Mom. For a moment, I considered letting it ring, but something compelled me to pick up. "Eric," she said, her voice hesitant. "Can we talk? I think we need to work through some things." Her tone was soft, almost apologetic, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was gearing up to defend Matt again. What do you do when the people who are supposed to love you keep asking for more without giving anything in return? Would you hear them out? Or would you finally walk away? Let me know, because for me, the decision wasn't as simple as it should have been. I agreed to meet Mom at a small cafe in town. It was one of those places that tried to be cozy, but felt just a little too polished to be authentic, like it was designed for Instagram rather than comfort. She was already there when I arrived, seated at a corner table with a latte in front of her. She looked up as I approached, giving me a tentative smile. "Hi, Eric," she said, her voice soft, almost cautious. "Hey, Mom," I replied, sliding into the seat across from her. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I fiddled with the corner of the menu, and she took a sip of her latte, clearly trying to find the right way to start. "So," she said finally, "how have you been?" "Busy," I said flatly. "Work's been hectic, but manageable." "You?" "Oh, she said with a nervous laugh. "Keeping busy. Your father's been working on the backyard again. He's decided we need a new patio." "Sounds nice," I said, my tone neutral. I wasn't here to talk about patios. Another awkward pause settled between us before she sighed and set her cup down. "Eric, I'm glad you agreed to meet," she said. "I've been thinking a lot about what's been happening between you and Matt. I know things have gotten tense." "Tense is one way to put it," I said, leaning back in my chair. "I'd say it's more like a breaking point." Her face fell, but she nodded. "I understand why you're upset," she said. "And I know we haven't handled things perfectly. But you have to understand, we were just trying to keep the peace." I couldn't help but laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Keep the peace?" I repeated. "Is that what you call enabling him for years while expecting me to pick up the slack?" She flinched at my words but didn't deny them. "Eric," she said carefully, "it's not as simple as you're making it out to be. Matt's always needed more support. You know that. He's struggled in ways you haven't. Because he's never had to face the consequences of his actions," I shot back. "Every time he screws up, you and Dad are there to bail him out. And when you can't, you turn to me. Do you have any idea how exhausting that is? To always be the one who's expected to fix things." Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I thought she might actually apologize. But instead, she said, "We never meant to put that burden on you, Eric. We didn't want to see Matt fail." "And what about me?" I asked, my voice rising slightly. "Did you ever stop to think about what this dynamic has done to me? The resentment it's caused? The way it's made me feel like I'm not as important as he is?" "Of course you're important," she said quickly. "We're so proud of everything you've accomplished." "Then why doesn't it feel like it?" I asked. "Why is it that no matter what I do, it's never enough to earn the same attention or support that Matt gets for doing nothing?" She didn't have an answer, and for a long moment, we just sat there, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Finally, she reached across the table, placing her hand on mine. "Eric," she said softly, "I know we've made mistakes, and I'm sorry if we've made you feel this way. But Matt's family is struggling right now. The kids don't deserve to suffer because of this." I pulled my hand away, shaking my head. "Don't do that," I said. "Don't use the kids to guilt me into fixing his problems. I love my nieces and nephew, but I can't keep enabling Matt. It's not helping him, and it's definitely not helping me." Her face crumpled, and I felt a pang of guilt, but I pushed it aside. "Eric," she said, her voice trembling, "he's your brother. Family takes care of each other. I've been taking care of him my whole life, I said firmly. And look where it's gotten us. He doesn't respect me. You don't respect me. All I'm asking for is to not be treated like a doormat anymore. Her tears spilled over, and she quickly dabbed at them with a napkin. I just want us to be a family, she said. Is that too much to ask? I sighed, my anger softening but not disappearing. It's not too much to ask, I said. But being a family doesn't mean one person carries all the weight while everyone else takes advantage. If we're going to move forward, something has to change. She nodded, though I wasn't sure if she really understood. When we left the cafe, she hugged me tightly, whispering, "Thank you for meeting with me. I hope we can figure this out." I nodded, but didn't say anything. As I walked back to my car, a familiar mix of emotions churned in my chest: frustration, guilt, and a lingering sense of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. What happens when love for your family conflicts with your need for self-respect? Can relationships like this ever truly heal? Or is the damage too deep? Let me know, because for me, the answer still felt out of reach. The weeks after my meeting with Mom were strangely quiet. Matt hadn't called or texted, and for a moment, I allowed myself to hope he'd taken my words to heart. Maybe he'd finally decided to take responsibility for his life. But that hope didn't last long. It started with small whispers, casual comments from extended family members that reached me through the grapevine. My cousin Janet mentioned offhandedly that Matt had told her I'd abandoned the family. Aunt Donna, always one for gossip, relayed a story about how I'd refused to help when the kids were in trouble. The narrative was clear. Matt was painting himself as the victim, and I was the villain. At first, I tried to ignore it. I reminded myself that this was classic Matt, deflecting blame, manipulating the story to make himself look better. But the more I heard, the harder it became to brush off. One evening, I got a call from Uncle Gary, who rarely reached out unless there was drama. "Eric," he said, his tone grave, "I've been hearing some things, and I thought you should know. Matt's been telling people that you cut him off just to be spiteful. He's saying you're bitter because he has a family and you don't." I clenched my jaw, feeling the familiar surge of anger. "Is that what he's saying?" "It is," Gary confirmed. "Look, I don't want to get in the middle of this, but I thought you deserved to know. You might want to set the record straight." "Thanks for letting me know," I said, though my voice sounded distant even to my own ears. When the call ended, I sat there, staring at my phone. A part of me wanted to blast Matt for the lies, to call every relative and tell them the truth about who he was and what he'd done. But another part of me, the part that had been dealing with Matt's antics for decades, knew it wouldn't make a difference. Meanwhile, Matt's financial situation continued to deteriorate. I knew from Mom that he'd finally swallowed his pride and asked our parents for help. They'd agreed, of course, though their savings weren't nearly enough to cover everything. "Your father and I have been trying to help where we can," Mom said during one of our occasional phone calls. "But it's not easy. He's in a deep hole, Eric." I bit back the urge to remind her that I wasn't the one who dug that hole. Instead, I said, "Maybe this is what he needs. If he can't rely on other people to bail him out, maybe he'll finally make some changes." "I hope so," she said softly. But the doubt in her voice was hard to miss. Despite my resolve to stand firm, the guilt never fully went away. It wasn't Matt I worried about. He'd made his bed, and I had no problem letting him lie in it. But his kids were a different story. Emma, Sophie, and little Jack hadn't asked for any of this. They didn't deserve to bear the brunt of their father's mistakes. Some nights, I lay awake wondering if I was being too harsh. Was I punishing innocent children because I was tired of enabling their father? But then I'd think about all the years I'd spent cleaning up Matt's messes, and the anger would come rushing back. I wasn't responsible for fixing what he'd broken. And maybe, just maybe, this was the wake-up call he needed. One rainy Tuesday evening, I came home to find an envelope slipped under my apartment door. My name was scrawled on the front in a handwriting I recognized immediately: Claire's. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the edge of the envelope. Whatever was inside, it wasn't going to be good. But curiosity got the better of me, and I opened it. "Dear Eric, I know you're angry with Matt, and I can't say I blame you. He's made a lot of mistakes, and I'm not here to defend him. But I'm writing to you because I don't know what else to do. Things have gotten worse, much worse, and I'm scared for the kids. What you don't know is that Matt's been gambling. That's why we're in this mess. He's been lying to me for years about where the money was going, and now we're so far under that I don't know how to get out. He's promised to stop, but I don't know if I can believe him anymore. I'm not asking you to give him money. I know that's not fair to you. But if there's anything you can do to help the kids, even just a little, it would mean the world to me. They're innocent in all of this, Eric. Please don't let them suffer for his mistakes. Sincerely, Claire. My hands shook as I finished reading. The weight of her words pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. Gambling? That was new even for Matt. I sat down, the letter still in my hand, and stared at the wall. For years, I thought I'd seen the worst of him, but this was something else entirely. What do you do when someone's lies and mistakes threaten to destroy more than just their own life? Would you step in to protect the innocent, or would you let them face the consequences alone? Let me know, because for me, the choice wasn't as clear as I wanted it to be. Claire's letter sat on my desk for 3 days before I decided what to do. The words haunted me. He's been gambling. The kids are innocent. I don't know how to get out. I knew I couldn't ignore it. But I also knew this couldn't just be another cycle of me swooping in to fix things while Matt carried on as usual. This time, there needed to be a reckoning, a real one. So, I called Claire. "Eric," she said, her voice cracking as soon as she answered. "I didn't think you'd respond." "I got your letter," I said. "We need to talk. In person." She hesitated. "Are you sure? I don't want to drag you into this." "It's too late for that," I replied. "I've been in the middle of this for years. Let's meet tomorrow. Just you and me." The next afternoon, we met at a quiet park. Claire looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her hair pulled back in a way that seemed more about convenience than style. She hugged herself against the chill as she approached, her expression a mix of guilt and desperation. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sitting on the bench beside me. "I need to know everything," I said, skipping the pleasantries. "All of it." She nodded, took a deep breath, and began. "It started years ago, not long after Matt and Claire got married. At first, it was small, sports bets with friends, the occasional night at a casino. But over time, it spiraled. He always said he had it under control," Claire explained, her voice trembling. "That it was just for fun, that it wasn't a problem. But then the credit card bills started piling up, and I realized he was lying. He wasn't just gambling our money. He was gambling the money you sent, too." I clenched my fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "I tried to confront him," she continued. "He promised to stop, and for a while I thought he had. But now, I don't know what to believe anymore. The debt keeps growing, and I don't know how to protect the kids from this." Her eyes filled with tears, and she wiped them away quickly. "I hate asking for your help, Eric, but I don't know what else to do. He won't listen to me." I sat there for a moment, processing everything she'd said. "You should have told me sooner," I said finally, my voice tight. "I know," she whispered, "but I didn't want to make things worse." "Worse?" I repeated, shaking my head. "Claire, he's been gambling away money I sent to help your family. He's been lying to you, to me, to everyone. How much worse can it get?" She didn't answer, and I let out a long breath, trying to steady myself. "I'm going to talk to him," I said. "He can't keep running from this." That evening, I drove to Matt's house. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I wasn't sure what I'd say when I saw him, but I knew this couldn't be another passive conversation. When I knocked on the door, Matt opened it with a surprised look. "Eric," he said, his tone cautious. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," I said, pushing past him into the living room. Claire must have told him I knew, because the moment we sat down, his defenses went up. "Look, if this is about Claire's letter." "It is," I interrupted, my voice cold. "I know everything, Matt. About the gambling. About the lies. About how you've been burning through the money I sent to help your family." His face flushed, and he looked away. "It's not what you think." "Don't," I snapped. "Don't you dare try to spin this. You've been lying to me for years, Matt. You've taken my money, my trust, and thrown it all away. And for what? To feed an addiction you won't even admit you have." "I don't have an addiction," he said defensively. "It's not like that." "Then what is it?" I demanded. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been putting your family's future on the line for your own selfish choices." Matt's composure cracked. "You don't understand," he shouted, his voice shaking. "I've been trying, Eric. I've been trying to make things work, but nothing I do is ever enough. Do you know what it's like to feel like a failure every single day?" His words stopped me in my tracks. "Do you know what it's like to look at your kids and see the disappointment in their eyes? To know that no matter how hard you try, you're just not good enough?" His voice broke, and he buried his face in his hands. For a moment, I saw a side of Matt I'd never seen before, raw, vulnerable, and utterly defeated. But then he looked up, and the fire in his eyes returned. "None of this would have happened if you just kept helping," he said bitterly. "You're supposed to be my brother, Eric. Family doesn't abandon family. And family doesn't use each other as a crutch," I shot back. "I've been helping you my whole life, Matt, and it's never enough. You don't need help. You need accountability. Until you're ready to take responsibility for your choices. I'm done. I stood up, my heart pounding, and headed for the door. Eric, Matt called after me, his voice desperate. Wait, please. But I didn't stop. What do you do when someone's cries for help are wrapped in manipulation? Would you give them one last chance? Or would you walk away for good? Let me know, because for me, this felt like the only choice I had left. It's been 6 months since that confrontation with Matt, and my life feels quieter now, calmer even. There are no late-night phone calls asking for money, no guilt-laden texts from mom about how I could be more understanding, no endless cycle of giving and resentment. I've stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop, and for the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. The decision to cut ties wasn't easy, but it was necessary. In the weeks following our argument, I stuck to my boundary, even as the fallout spread. Mom called frequently, her tone a mix of guilt and pleading. Eric, can't you just sit down with Matt again? He's really struggling. I've already said everything I need to say, I'd reply. It's up to him now. Dad was quieter, but when he did speak, it was usually to defend Matt. He's under a lot of pressure, he told me once. You don't know what it's like to carry the weight of a family. It took everything in me not to remind him that I'd been carrying Matt's weight for years while they looked the other way. My relationship with my parents hasn't been the same since. We still talk occasionally, but the warmth that used to be there, however superficial, feels dimmed. They still make excuses for Matt, still try to rationalize his behavior, as though he's some misunderstood victim of circumstance. At first, their denial infuriated me. But over time, I've come to accept that they'll never see things the way I do. They've invested too much in the narrative of Matt as the one who needs saving. To admit otherwise would mean acknowledging their own role in enabling him, and that's a bridge they're not willing to cross. As for Matt, I haven't heard from him since that night. Every now and then, I wonder how he's doing. Has he finally taken responsibility for his actions? Has he found a way to fix the mess he created? Or is he still looking for someone to blame, someone to rescue him? I don't have the answers, and I've stopped chasing them. The biggest surprise came a few days ago, in the form of an envelope with Claire's handwriting on it. I hesitated before opening it, half expecting another plea for help. But what I found wasn't what I expected. Dear Eric, I've been thinking a lot about what happened, and I feel like I owe you an apology. I know Matt's behavior has put an unfair burden on you, and I'm sorry for the role I played in enabling it. I should have spoken up sooner, but I was scared of what would happen if I rocked the boat, scared of admitting how bad things really were. Your decision to stand up to Matt was the wake-up call I needed. For years, I convinced myself that things would get better if I just waited it out, but they never did. After your confrontation, I finally realized that Matt isn't going to change unless he's forced to face the consequences of his actions. I want you to know that I've left him. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one for me and the kids. We're staying with my sister for now, while I figure out the next steps, but I feel hopeful for the first time in a long time. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for standing up to him when I couldn't. Thank you for showing me that it's okay to demand better. Sincerely, Claire. I read the letter 3 times, each time feeling a little lighter. Claire's words weren't just an acknowledgement of everything I'd endured. They were proof that my decision to step back had made a difference. It hadn't been about punishing Matt or abandoning the family. It had been about breaking a toxic cycle, and for Claire and the kids, it seemed to have worked. As I sit here now, reflecting on everything that's happened, I feel a strange mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and most of all, peace. For years, I thought being a good brother, a good son, meant sacrificing my own happiness to keep the family together. But now I see that real love isn't about enabling someone's worst behavior. Sometimes love means walking away. Is family worth sacrificing your peace of mind? Or are some bonds better left broken? I don't have all the answers, but I do know this. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care enough about yourself to stop the hurt. What do you think? Would you have done the same? Or would you have tried one more time to make it work? Let me know, because for me, this was the hardest decision I've ever made, but also the most freeing.